Did you know that living past 40 in the medieval world was an astounding feat? Plagues, famines, and constant conflict made life incredibly fragile for centuries, from the 5th to the 15th century. How did some remarkable individuals defy the odds and reach truly ancient ages in such a brutal time? Number 10. Frederick Barbarossa, etc., 1122, 1190 AD. Age, etc., 68. The sound of hooves on ancient cobblestones, the glint of sun on a polished helmet, and the roar of a crowd hailing their emperor. That was the world of Frederick I, known throughout history as Frederick Barbarossa, or Redbeard. Born around the year 1122, he entered a world of intense political maneuvering and shifting loyalties within the Holy Roman Empire. His early life unfolded against a backdrop of powerful German dukes and a papacy that wielded immense temporal and spiritual authority. Frederick's path to the throne was not entirely smooth, but his strong personality and military skill quickly set him apart from his peers. He was a Hohenstaufen, a powerful noble family, and his election as King of Germany in 1152 set him on a course to restore what he saw as the lost glory of the Roman Empire. Chroniclers of his era described him as a man of imposing stature, with a vibrant red beard that gave him his famous nickname. He possessed a commanding presence and an unwavering belief in his imperial rights. Frederick's reign was marked by relentless campaigns to consolidate power, particularly in Italy. He saw the wealthy city-states of Lombardy as crucial to his imperial vision, believing they owed him direct allegiance. This led to a series of wars that spanned decades, involving the powerful Lombard League, an alliance of northern Italian cities resisting imperial control. Frederick led his armies across the Alps multiple times, enduring both stunning victories and crushing defeats. One notable triumph was the destruction of Milan in 1162, a stark example of his ruthless determination. However, his ambitions in Italy often met fierce resistance. The Battle of Legnano in 1176 proved a significant setback, where his armored knights were famously defeated by the Milanese militia, who employed a well-organized infantry known as the Carroccio. Despite this defeat, Frederick possessed an extraordinary resilience. He did not let one loss define his entire strategy. He understood the art of political compromise and negotiation, even after military failures. Beyond his military endeavors, Frederick Barbarossa also focused on establishing a robust legal framework for his empire. He revived Roman law, believing it would provide a solid foundation for his authority and bring order to a fragmented realm. His courts became centers of justice, and his charters and decrees aimed to standardize governance across his vast territories. He was a patron of learning and the arts, though his primary focus remained on asserting imperial supremacy. His later years saw him engage in diplomacy with the Pope and other European monarchs, often seeking to balance power and secure his dynasty's future. He arranged the marriage of his son Henry VI to Constance, the heiress to the Norman Kingdom of Sicily, a strategic move that significantly expanded Hohenstaufen influence in the south. This careful planning for succession ensured his legacy would continue even after his death. Frederick's health, despite a lifetime of warfare and arduous travel, remained remarkably robust for his time. He was known for his active lifestyle and personal leadership in battles. He avoided the common diseases that plagued many medieval rulers. His longevity was a testament to his strength and perhaps a bit of luck in avoiding fatal wounds in the countless skirmishes he personally led. As he approached his late 60s, an age almost unheard of for a ruler who spent so much time on horseback and on campaign, his vigor did not seem to wane. His commitment to the Crusades was a deeply held conviction. When Jerusalem fell to Saladin in 1187, Frederick, as one of the most powerful rulers in Europe, answered the call to lead the Third Crusade alongside Richard the Lionheart of England and Philip Augustus of France. In 1189, at around 67 years of age, Frederick Barbarossa set out on the long and perilous journey to the Holy Land. His army, reputedly the largest of the Crusade, marched through the Byzantine Empire and into Anatolia, facing immense challenges from the terrain, climate, and local resistance. Despite the hardships, Frederick continued to lead from the front, demonstrating an incredible endurance for a man of his years. Tragically, in June 1190, while crossing the Salif River in modern-day Turkey, Frederick Barbarossa drowned. The exact circumstances remain debated by historians, but the river was known for its swift currents. His death was a monumental blow to the Crusader cause and a profound shock to his empire. Even in his demise, he left an enduring mark on history, remembered as a powerful and Medoc emperor who tirelessly fought to restore the glory of the Holy Roman Empire, living a full and affable life that far outlasted most of his contemporaries. His legacy lived on in German folklore, where legends sprang up about his eventual return to save the empire, cementing his place as a figure of eternal power and endurance. Number 9. Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, 1090. 1153 AD. Age 62. In an age often defined by brute force and dynastic struggles, the influence of a single monk could reshape kingdoms and stir the hearts of countless souls. Bernard of Clairvaux, born in 1090 in Fontaines-les-Dijon, Burgundy, was such a figure. His early life was steeped in aristocratic privilege. As his family belonged to the minor nobility, unlike many of his peers who sought military glory or political power, Bernard felt an early and overwhelming call to a monastic life. He was well educated, trained in Latin and rhetoric skills that would later serve him powerfully in his spiritual and political endeavors. At the age of 22, he chose to join the fledgling Cistercian order, a reform movement within Benedictine monasticism that emphasized a stricter adherence and nature. He convinced more than 30 relatives and friends, including his brothers, to join him at Citeaux, the mother abbey of the Cistercians. This act alone demonstrated his remarkable charisma and persuasive power from a young age. The Cistercian order was then a small and struggling community, but Bernard's arrival marked a turning point. Within a few years, due to the rapid growth sparked by his fervor, he was sent to found a new monastery in a desolate valley that would soon become known as Clairvaux, or Valley of Light. Under Bernard's abbacy, Clairvaux flourished, growing from a single foundation into the head of a vast network of Cistercian monasteries across Europe. Monks from Clairvaux went forth to establish over 60 new abbeys during Bernard's lifetime, spreading the Cistercian ethos of austerity and devotion far and wide. Bernard's influence extended far beyond the walls of his monastery. He became one of the most significant spiritual and political figures of the 12th century. His letters, sermons, and theological treatises were widely circulated and profoundly shaped medieval Christian thought. He was a fierce advocate for monastic reform, often criticizing what he saw as the excesses and worldliness of other religious orders. His writings on the Song of Songs, on grace, and on the role of Mary in salvation history are still studied today. But it was his active involvement in the great affairs of his time that truly set him apart. He acted as an advisor to popes, kings, and emperors, mediating disputes and shaping policy. He played a crucial role in settling the papal schism of 1130, throwing his immense moral authority behind Pope Innocent II, eventually securing his recognition throughout Christendom. Despite a constitution that was often frail and plagued by stomach ailments, Bernard undertook grueling journeys across Europe, preaching, arbitrating, and influencing. He was a tireless controversialist, engaging in famous debates with figures like Peter Abelard, one of the leading intellectuals of his day, over theological matters. Bernard's unwavering convictions and powerful rhetoric often carried the day, even against formidable opponents. His greatest public role came when he was commissioned by Pope Eugenius III to preach the Second Crusade in 1146. Bernard traveled through France and Germany, delivering passionate sermons that captivated vast audiences and inspired thousands to take up the cross. His words were so potent that people reputedly tore strips from their clothes to fashion crosses. Such was the enthusiasm he generated. Kings, Louis VII of France and Conrad III of Germany, answered his call, leading large armies to the Holy Land. Bernard's life was a continuous cycle of prayer writing, administration, and public engagement. He was a living embodiment of the Cistercian ideal, balancing deep contemplative prayer with fervent action in the world, even as he aged into his 60s. A considerable feat in his time, his energy for the spiritual struggle and for the affairs of the Church did not diminish. He maintained a rigorous monastic schedule, rising before dawn for vigils and dedicating himself to study and prayer. While the Second Crusade ultimately failed to achieve its objectives, a result that deeply saddened Bernard, his personal prestige remained largely intact. He had acted out of sincere conviction and divine mandate. His final years were spent overseeing his vast monastic network, continuing to write and advising those who saw his wisdom. Bernard of Clairvaux passed away in 1153 at the age of 62. His canonization as a saint, just 21 years later, confirmed his enduring spiritual significance. His life demonstrated that even in a chaotic age, intellectual and spiritual power could command as much, if not more, influence than the sword, and sustain a man for decades of relentless service. Number 8. Christine de Pizan, A. 1364. C. 1430 AD. Age 866. In a world where women's voices were largely silenced or confined to domestic spheres, Christine de Pizan emerged as a trailblazing author, thinker, and one of the first professional female writers in European history. Born around 1364 in Venice, Italy, her early life was marked by unusual circumstances that set her apart. Her father, Tommaso di Benvenuto da Pisano, was a prominent scholar, physician, and astrologer who served at the court of King Charles V of France. This position brought Christine to Paris when she was just 4 years old, a move that would profoundly shape her intellectual development. Unlike most girls of her era, Christine received an exceptional education, largely due to her father's progressive views. He believed in her intellectual capabilities and encouraged her studies, granting her access to the vast royal library and a world of knowledge usually reserved for men. At the age of 15, Christine married Etienne du Castel, a royal notary and secretary. Their marriage was a happy one, producing 3 children. This period of her life seemed to promise a comfortable and conventional existence. However, tragedy struck when she was only 25 years old. Her father died in 1380, followed by her husband in 1390, leaving her a widow with young children and elderly female relatives to support. Facing significant legal battles over her husband's estate and burdened by debts, Christine found herself in a precarious position. Instead of succumbing to despair or remarrying, she made the astonishing decision to pursue writing as a means of earning a living. This was an unprecedented choice for a woman in medieval society, especially one of her social standing. Christine de Pizan began by writing ballads and lyrical poetry, quickly gaining recognition for her elegant style and thoughtful verses. Her poetic talent attracted the attention of wealthy patrons, including members of the French royal family and powerful dukes, who commissioned her work. This allowed her to establish herself as a professional author, a remarkable feat in itself. As her confidence and skill grew, she began to tackle more ambitious and complex subjects, moving into prose and exploring themes of morality, governance, and gender. Her works often engaged with the intellectual debates of her time. One of her most famous contributions was the Quarrel of the Rose, where she openly criticized the misogynistic depictions of women in the popular Roman de la Rose, challenging prevailing literary conventions and challenging prevailing literary conventions. She argued passionately for a more balanced and respectful portrayal of women. Her most enduring work, the Book of the City of Ladies, written in 1405, stands as a landmark in early feminist thought. In this allegorical masterpiece, Christine constructs a metaphorical city inhabited by virtuous women from history, mythology, and the Bible, defending and celebrating. She envisioned a society where women were valued for their intellect and capabilities, not just their physical beauty or domestic roles. This book was a direct response to the widespread anti-women sentiments prevalent in medieval literature and philosophy. She argued that women's supposed inferiority was not inherent, but a result of lack of education and opportunity. This was an incredibly brave stance to take in her era, but her established reputation and royal patronage offered her a degree of protection. Christine continued to write prolifically for over 3 decades, producing over 40 works, including biographies, political treatises, and moral instructions. She lived through a period of intense turmoil in France, including the 100 Years' War and the devastating civil strife between the Armagnacs and Burgundians. Her writings often reflected her concern for the state of France, offering advice to rulers and advocating for peace and good governance. Her longevity allowed her to witness significant historical events and to refine her ideas over many years. She remained intellectually active and engaged with the world around her, even as she aged into her 60s. Her keen observation of society, her literary talent, and her courage to challenge established norms made her a unique voice in her time. In her later years, as political instability deepened, Christine retired to a convent, likely the Abbey of Poissy, where her daughter was a nun. There, she continued to write, producing one of her last and most poignant works, The Tale of Joan of Arc, written in 1429. This work, celebrating the miraculous rise of Joan of Arc, was one of the few pieces of literature written during Joan's lifetime that openly praised her. It showcased Christine's continued engagement with the world and her ability to recognize and laud extraordinary female figures. Christine de Pizan is believed to have died around 1430, at the age of approximately 66. Her long and productive life, against the odds of both gender expectations and the challenges of medieval existence, solidified her legacy as a pioneering intellectual. Her writings continue to resonate, offering a glimpse into the mind of a brilliant woman who dared to imagine a different world. For women centuries before, such ideas became widespread. Number 7. Edward III of England, 1312 1377 AD. Age, 64. The medieval English throne was often a precarious seat, fraught with civil war, foreign invasion, and sudden violent ends for its occupants. Yet, Edward III, born in 1312, defied many of these dangers, not only establishing one of the most successful and longest reigns in English history, but also living to a remarkable age for a monarch deeply involved in warfare. His father, Edward II, was an unpopular and ineffectual king, whose reign ended in deposition and brutal murder. Edward III himself was crowned king at the tender age of 14 in 1327. Initially under the regency of his mother Isabella of France and her lover Roger Mortimer. However, the young king, demonstrating an early grasp of power, soon asserted his own authority. In 1330, at just 18 years old, he orchestrated a coup against Mortimer, having him arrested and executed. This decisive act marked the beginning of Edward's personal rule and signaled his strength and determination. Edward's reign would be largely defined by the 100 Years' War, a protracted conflict with France that began in 1337. Edward laid claim to the French throne through his mother Isabella, who was the daughter of the French king Philip IV. This dynastic dispute, combined with economic rivalries and control over the wealthy region of Aquitaine, ignited one of the longest and most epical wars in European history. Edward proved to be an exceptionally gifted military commander. His early victories, such as the naval triumph at Sluys in 1340, which crippled the French fleet, and the stunning land victory at Crécy in 1346, where English longbowmen decimated the French chivalry, solidified his reputation as a formidable warrior king. These battles so Christ enmity tactics that exploited the strengths of the English military and undermined traditional medieval warfare. Despite the constant demands of warfare and campaigning, Edward maintained a robust constitution for many decades. He led his armies personally, enduring the rigors of travel, siege, and battle. He often faced significant personal danger on the battlefield, yet he always seemed to emerge unscathed from direct combat. His physical resilience, coupled with his strategic acumen, allowed him to prosecute the war relentlessly for over 40 years. The Black Death, which swept across Europe in the mid-14th century, devastating populations and bringing societies to their knees, also impacted England during Edward's reign. He navigated this catastrophic plague which claimed many lives, including some in his own family, with a degree of pragmatism, attempting to manage its aftermath and the severe labor shortages it created. His longevity allowed him to see his kingdom through this immense crisis and begin the slow process of recovery. Edward's court was a vibrant center of chivalry, literature, and culture. He famously founded the Order of the Garter, England's most prestigious order of knighthood, in 1348, emphasizing ideals of honor, loyalty, and martial prowess. This institution helped to foster a sense of national identity and unity among his nobility. Crucial for prosecuting the Long War, he also invested in building projects, including the reconstruction of Windsor Castle, transforming it into a grand royal residence that still stands today. His political skill was evident in his relationship with Parliament, which grew in influence during his reign, as he frequently sought their support for financing the war. He cultivated a cooperative relationship with the emerging House of Commons, recognizing the necessity of their consent for taxation. Even in his later years, as he approached his 60s, Edward continued to engage in active governance and strategic planning. While the tide of the 100 Years' War began to turn against England in the 1370s, with France regaining much of the territory they had lost, Edward's direct personal involvement in military campaigns diminished, but his strategic mind remained sharp. He experienced personal tragedies, including the death of his beloved wife, Queen Philippa, and his eldest son, Edward the Black Prince, a celebrated military hero in his own right, who died in 1376. Just a year before his father. These losses undoubtedly weighed heavily. Despite these personal sorrows and the military setbacks, Edward III continued to rule until his death in 1377. Edward III passed away at the age of 64, a remarkable lifespan for a medieval king who had spent so much of his life at war. His reign, lasting 50 years, was one of the longest and most consequential in English history. He left behind a powerful and centralized monarchy, a distinct English identity, forged in the crucible of war, and enduring legacy as one of England's most successful and formidable medieval rulers. His ability to survive and thrive for so long, in a period of such extreme violence and instability, remains a testament to his remarkable resilience and the privileges of his royal status. Number 6. Marco Polo, Atra, 1254–1324 AD. Age, etc. 70. The spirit of exploration burned brightly in the medieval world, though few ventured as far or saw as much as Marco Polo. Born around 1254 in Venice, a powerful maritime republic and a hub of trade, Marco's early life was immersed in the world of merchants and distant lands. His father Niccolo and his uncle Maffeo were already seasoned travelers, having ventured deep into Asia on trading expeditions. When Marco was just 17 in 1271, he embarked on an extraordinary journey with his father and uncle that would span over 2 decades and take him to the farthest reaches of the known world, deep into the Mongol Empire and the court of Kublai Khan. This was no ordinary trip. It was a diplomatic mission and a quest for knowledge. Carrying letters from the Pope to the Great Khan, the journey itself was an epic undertaking, a testament to the incredible endurance required for medieval travel. The Polos traversed the vast, challenging landscapes of the Middle East and Central Asia, enduring deserts, mountains, and harsh climates. They passed through Persia, Afghanistan, and the Pamir Mountains, following parts of the legendary Silk Road. The sheer scale of their travel on horseback and camel, often through dangerous territories, highlights the physical toughness of these Venetian adventurers. When they finally arrived at the court of Kublai Khan in Shandu or Sanadu in 1275, they were welcomed warmly. Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan and ruler of the vast Mongol Empire, was fascinated by the Polos' knowledge of the West, and particularly by young Marco's keen intelligence and linguistic abilities. Marco Polo quickly adapted to life at the Mongol court, learning several languages and proving himself invaluable to the Khan. He entered into Kublai Khan's service, serving as an administrator, diplomat, and even as a special envoy on various missions across the empire. He traveled extensively throughout China, then known as Cathay, visiting cities like Beijing, Hangzhou, and countless others. He observed the sophisticated infrastructure, the paper money economy, the vast imperial postal system, and the incredible wealth and population of the Mongol Empire. These were things utterly unknown to Europeans at the time. His long tenure in the Khan's service, reportedly for 17 years, allowed him unparalleled access to the inner workings of one of the world's greatest empires, providing him with a unique perspective on a civilization far more advanced in many respects than anything in Europe. During his time in Asia, Marco Polo experienced a world of vastly different customs, technologies, and beliefs. He recorded observations on everything from coal burning as fuel to the intricate systems of canals and the practice of bathing. He encountered diverse cultures, religions, and peoples, all of which would later fill the pages of his famous book. His work for the Khan often involved extensive travel, meaning he continued to face the rigors of journeys even within the relative safety of the Mongol Empire. His remarkable health and resilience allowed him to endure these constant travels and the demands of court life. He did not merely survive. He thrived in an alien environment, absorbing knowledge and making himself indispensable. Despite their privileged position, the Polos eventually longed to return home. Kublai Khan was initially reluctant to let them go, as they had become trusted advisors. However, after persistent requests, they were eventually granted permission to accompany a Mongol princess, Kokachin, on a sea voyage to Persia in 1292. This journey by sea was itself incredibly dangerous, fraught with storms and disease. The fleet, reportedly comprising 14 ships, took 2 years to reach its destination, and many Ipun perished. Marco Polo, along with his father and uncle, once again defied the odds, surviving the treacherous voyage and eventually making their way back to Venice in 1295, a full 24 years after they had departed. They were reportedly not recognized by their own family, having adopted Central Asian attire and speaking with accent. Their clothes were said to be patched and worn, but they demonstrated their immense wealth by cutting open the seams of their garments, spilling forth precious jewels. Shortly after his return, Venice became embroiled in a naval war with Genoa, its bitter rival. Marco Polo served as a commander on a Venetian galley and was captured by the Genoese in 1298. During his imprisonment, he dictated the story of his incredible travels to a fellow prisoner, Rustichello da Pisa, a Romance writer. The resulting book, commonly known as The Travels of Marco Polo, or Il Milione, became an instant sensation across Europe. The travels offered Europeans their first comprehensive look into the distant lands of Asia, describing its vastness, wealth, and sophisticated cultures. Though some dismissed it as a fanciful tale, it inspired generations of explorers, including Christopher Columbus. Marco Polo lived for many more years after his release from prison, enjoying the fruits of his travels and the fame brought by his book. He passed away in Venice in 1324 at the age of approximately 70. His life, marked by unparalleled adventure, enduring hardship, and remarkable survival, profoundly expanded the European understanding of the world, proving that a long life was possible even for those who pushed the boundaries of human exploration. Number 5. Maimonides, 1138–1204 AD. Age 66. In the vibrant and complex intellectual landscape of the medieval world, where Islamic, Jewish, and Christian scholarship often intersected, few figures shone as brightly as Moses ben Maimon, known throughout history as Maimonides, born in Cordoba al-Andalus in 1138. A region then under Muslim rule, his early life was shaped by both the flourishing Jewish intellectual tradition and the broader Islamic Golden Age, which fostered a vibrant exchange of ideas. His family was prominent and scholarly, and he received a thorough education in both religious law and secular sciences, including mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. However, his youth was marked by upheaval. When he was about 13, the Almohad dynasty, a strict Islamic fundamentalist group, conquered Cordoba, forcing Maimonides' family, along with many other Jewish and Christian communities, to choose between conversion, exile, or death. Maimonides' family chose exile, embarking on a nomadic existence for over a decade, traveling across North Africa and the Middle East, seeking a safe haven where they could openly practice their faith and pursue their studies. This period of wandering, while undoubtedly challenging, also exposed Maimonides to diverse cultures and scholarly traditions, broadening his intellectual horizons. They eventually settled in Fustat, Old Cairo, Egypt, around 1168. In Egypt, Maimonides' reputation as a brilliant scholar and a compassionate leader, he initially supported himself by trading jewels, but after a family tragedy he turned to medicine, a profession that allowed him to use his vast knowledge and provide for his family while pursuing his scholarly work. He became a highly respected physician, serving both the Jewish community and the court of the powerful vizier Al-Fadil, and later Saladin's family. Maimonides' medical knowledge was extensive, drawing upon Greek, Islamic, and Jewish medical traditions. He wrote several medical treatises that combined theoretical knowledge with practical advice, advocating for a holistic approach to health that emphasized diet, hygiene, and moderation. His expertise in medicine undoubtedly contributed to his own longevity, as he possessed knowledge of practices that could mitigate common ailments and promote well-being in a time of limited medical. While practicing medicine, Maimonides also produced his monumental works of Jewish law and philosophy that would cement his place as one of the most influential thinkers in Jewish history. His first major work, the Mishneh Torah, completed in 1178, was a systematic codification of all Jewish law, covering every aspect of Jewish life. This 14-volume work was a groundbreaking achievement, designed to make Jewish law accessible to everyone, written in clear and concise Hebrew. Before this, Jewish law was often dispersed across numerous texts and interpretations, making it difficult for the average person to navigate. The Mishneh Torah brought order and clarity, though it also generated controversy for its audacious attempt to present a definitive legal code. Despite some opposition, it quickly became a foundational text for Jewish legal study and continues to be studied today. Maimonides' most famous philosophical work, The Guide for the Perplexed, written in Arabic in 1190, sought to reconcile faith and reason, particularly addressing the tensions between Aristotelian philosophy and Jewish theology. He grappled with fundamental questions about God's nature, creation, prophecy, and the meaning of religious commandments, attempting to provide a rational framework for understanding religious truths. This work was immensely influential, not only within Jewish thought but also among Christian scholastics, including Thomas Aquinas, who studied Maimonides' ideas. His ability to bridge disparate intellectual traditions and to articulate complex ideas with precision showcased his extraordinary intellect. Throughout his life, Maimonides maintained an incredibly disciplined routine, balancing his demanding medical practice, his rigorous scholarly pursuits, and his responsibilities His daily schedule, as described by his student Joseph Ben Judah, was relentless, involving long hours seen patients teaching, studying, and writing. The sheer volume and depth of his output, despite his demanding professions and a lifetime of travel and upheaval, speak to his incredible mental and physical stamina. He lived through the reigns of several powerful sultans and witnessed significant political changes in Egypt, including the rise of Saladin's Ayyubid dynasty. He navigated these shifting political landscapes with wisdom and diplomacy, advocating for his community. Maimonides died in Fustat, Egypt, in 1204 at the age of 66. His passing was mourned by Jewish communities throughout the world, and he was buried in Tiberias in the Holy Land, a testament to his profound importance. His legacy as a philosopher, jurist, and physician endured for centuries, earning him the adage, "From Moses to Moses," referring to him as the second Moses, a leader and lawgiver of unparalleled stature. His long life allowed him to complete a body of work that profoundly shaped Jewish thought and influenced broader intellectual currents. A testament to a life lived with unwavering dedication to knowledge, to faith in a challenging and uncertain world. Number 4. Roger Bacon, A. 1214, 1292 AD, age, etc., 78. In the bustling intellectual world of 13th century Europe, where universities were just beginning to flourish, a friar named Roger Bacon emerged as a singularly inquisitive and often controversial figure. Born around 1214 in Ilchester, Somerset, England, Bacon entered a world grappling with new ideas flowing from the Islamic world and ancient Greek texts, newly translated into Latin. His early education would have been typical for a bright young man destined for the church or scholarship, likely at Oxford University, which was then growing in prominence. He delved deeply into the liberal arts, focusing on grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music. His thirst for knowledge, however, quickly led him beyond conventional studies. Bacon's early career saw him teaching at the University of Paris, Europe's leading intellectual center. Here he became acquainted with the full scope of medieval scholarship, including the rediscovered works of Aristotle and the scientific advancements preserved and developed by Islamic scholars. He was fascinated by natural philosophy and the pursuit of knowledge through observation and experimentation, a method that stood in stark contrast to the dominant scholastic approach of his time, which emphasized dialectic and reasoning from authority. Around 1257, Bacon joined the Franciscan order, a mendicant order known for its emphasis on poverty and learning. This move seemingly offered him a framework for scholarly pursuit, but his unconventional ideas and outspoken criticisms of the academic establishment soon brought him into conflict with his superiors. Bacon became a vocal critic of what he perceived as the intellectual stagnation of his era. He argued that the study of theology, the queen of sciences, was flawed without a solid foundation in the useful sciences, such as mathematics, optics, and experimental method. He believed that true knowledge came not just from reading ancient texts, but from direct experience and empirical investigation. He famously advocated for the importance of mathematics as the alphabet of philosophy, and optics as crucial for understanding the natural world. He even suggested that Latin, the universal language of scholarship, was imperfect, and advocated for the study of Greek and Hebrew to access original texts directly. These were radical propositions that challenged the very fabric of medieval academic tradition. His imitative ideas and the relentless pursuit of experimental knowledge led him to explore a wide range of fields. He conducted experiments in optics, studying the properties of light and lenses, anticipating later developments in microscopy and telescopes. He speculated about the possibility of self-propelled vehicles, flying machines, and underwater diving apparatus, all centuries before their actual invention. These visionary predictions earned him the moniker Dr. Mirabilis, or Wonderful Teacher. His most significant work, the Opus Majus, written in 1267 at the request of Pope Clement IV, was a vast synthesis of his knowledge and a passionate plea for educational reform. Despite his brilliant mind, Bacon's personality was often abrasive. He was fiercely independent and did not shy away from criticizing powerful figures within the church and academia. This outspokenness, combined with his unorthodox scientific investigations, which some viewed with suspicion or even as dabbling in magic, led to periods of imprisonment by his Franciscan superiors. He spent over a decade under house arrest or in monastic confinement, restricted from publishing his works. Yet even during these periods of enforced isolation, Bacon continued to write and refine his ideas, demonstrating a profound resilience and dedication to his intellectual pursuits. His unwavering commitment to his principles, despite the personal cost, allowed him to continue his work well into old age. Roger Bacon's longevity was particularly remarkable, given the primitive understanding of health in his time and the stresses of his life. He lived through a period of significant political and social upheaval, including the Crusades and ongoing conflicts within Europe. His diet and lifestyle, though not documented in detail, likely reflected the austerity of a Franciscan friar, which may have contributed to his health. He continued to write and engage with philosophical and scientific questions as he approached his 70s and 80s. His ability to maintain his intellectual vigor and passion for learning throughout such a long life is a testament to his extraordinary mind. Roger Bacon passed away in Oxford, England around 1292, at the age of approximately 78. While many of his ideas were ahead of their time and not fully appreciated or implemented during his lifetime, his legacy as a prophet of modern science is undeniable. He stands as a towering figure who championed empiricism and experimentation in an age dominated by abstract reasoning. His long life allowed him to lay the groundwork for future scientific inquiry, showing that even in the heart of the Middle Ages, radical thinkers could endure and contribute profoundly to the long march of human knowledge. Number 3. Genghis Khan, PD, A. 1162, 1227 AD. Age, etc. 65. The name Genghis Khan echoes through history as one of the most formidable and gooey figures the world has ever known. Born Temujin, around 1162, in what is now Mongolia, his early life was one of relentless hardship and struggle. His father, a minor tribal chieftain, was poisoned when Temujin was only 9 years old, leaving his family destitute and vulnerable. They were abandoned by their clan and forced to survive on their own in the harsh steppes, hunting, fishing, and enduring constant threats from rival tribes. This brutal upbringing forged a character of extraordinary resilience, cunning, and an unyielding will to survive. Temujin's early years were marked by famine, capture, and escape, each experience hardening him and teaching him lessons about loyalty, betrayal, and the nature of power. From these desperate beginnings, Temujin began to unite the disparate Mongol tribes, a feat considered impossible by many. He started with a small band of loyal followers, often relying on his charisma, strategic brilliance, and a strict code of justice. He offered protection to those who joined him and mercilessly crushed those who resisted. His military innovations were revolutionary. He organized his armies into disciplined units, emphasizing speed, communication, and highly coordinated cavalry maneuvers. He promoted soldiers based on merit rather than tribal affiliation or lineage, fostering loyalty directly to him. By 1206, after decades of brutal tribal warfare and alliances, Temujin had unified all the Mongol and Turkic tribes under his leadership and was proclaimed Genghis Khan. The rise of the Mongol Empire under Genghis Khan was an unprecedented event in world history. From their base in the Central Asian steppes, his army swept across Eurasia, conquering vast territories that stretched from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe. He led campaigns against the Jin dynasty in northern China, the Khwarezmian Empire in Central Asia, and various kingdoms in Russia and the Middle East. Each conquest was a testament to his strategic genius and the unparalleled efficiency of his military machine. Cities fell, empires crumbled, and the GLD map of the world was redrawn on a scale never before seen. The Mongol conquest was devastating in its immediate impact, but it also inadvertently opened up trade routes, facilitated cultural exchange, and laid the groundwork for future empires. Despite the relentless demands of warfare and governance, Genghis Khan maintained a remarkable level of physical and mental vigor throughout his life. He personally led many of his most important campaigns, spending years on horseback, enduring the harshest climates and facing constant threats. His life was a continuous cycle of conquest, administration, and planning for the next phase of his empire's expansion. Unlike many rulers who delegated warfare, Genghis Khan was a warrior emperor intimately involved in the execution of his grand strategies. His health, which allowed him to endure decades of military campaigning, was a significant factor in his success. He established a sophisticated postal relay system, the YAM, which allowed for rapid communication across his vast empire, essential for effective command and control over such dispersed forces. Beyond his military prowess, Genghis Khan was also a shrewd administrator. He recognized the need for a stable legal framework to govern his vast and diverse empire. He promulgated the Yasa, a comprehensive code of laws that regulated all aspects of Mongol life from military organization to taxation and social conduct. The Yasa emphasized principles of loyalty, discipline, and religious tolerance, creating a surprisingly stable environment within the conquered territories. He also introduced a written script for the Mongol language, recognizing the importance of literacy for administration and communication. These institutional reforms aimed to create a lasting empire that could outlive his own reign, demonstrating a forward-thinking vision. As he approached his 60s, an age where most medieval rulers were either dead or infirm, Genghis Khan remained actively engaged in his role as supreme commander. His final campaign, launched in 1226, was against the Tangut people of the Western Yil dynasty, who had defied his authority. He led this campaign himself, demonstrating his unwavering resolve. The conditions on the steppes were harsh, and the constant travel and stress would have worn down a lesser man. Yet Genghis Khan continued to lead with his characteristic determination. He passed away in 1227 during this campaign, at the age of approximately 65. The exact cause of his death remains somewhat debated, but it was likely from injuries sustained during a fall from his horse or an illness exacerbated by the rigors of campaign. Genghis Khan's death did not halt the expansion of the Mongol Empire, which continued under his successors. His legacy, though often associated with brutal conquest, is also one of unprecedented unification, administrative innovation, and the creation of a vast network that connected East and West. His remarkably long life, spent almost entirely in leadership and warfare, allowed him to lay the foundations for an empire that profoundly shaped world history for centuries to come, proving that the toughest among men could defy the common fate of early death. In the medieval era, Number 2. Eleanor of Aquitaine, c. 1122-1204 AD. Age, etc. 82. Imagine a woman whose life story reads like an epic saga, filled with dazzling wealth, political intrigue, 2 royal marriages, a crusade, and even a period of imprisonment. Such was the life of Eleanor of Aquitaine, born around 1122, who would become one of the most powerful and influential women of the entire medieval period. Her early life was spent in the sophisticated and culturally rich Duchy of Aquitaine, a vast and prosperous territory in southwestern France. As the eldest daughter of Duke William X, Eleanor received an excellent education, far exceeding that of most noble women of her time. She was well versed in Latin, music, hunting, and horsemanship, and possessed a keen intelligence and strong will. At the tender age of 15 in 1137, Eleanor's life changed dramatically when her father died, making her the wealthiest and most sought-after heiress in Europe. Her inheritance included not only the vast lands of Aquitaine, but also numerous vassals and considerable political power. Her marriage was a matter of immense importance for the future of France. She was immediately married to Louis VII, the heir to the French throne, and within weeks became Queen of France. This marriage brought the rich Duchy of Aquitaine under the control of the French crown, a source of both power and future contention. Eleanor was a vibrant and energetic queen, but her marriage to the pious and austere Louis was often strained. She famously accompanied her husband on the Second Crusade in 1147, traveling across Europe and Asia Minor. A truly extraordinary undertaking for a queen. During the arduous journey, she reportedly led her own contingent of Aquitanian knights and suffered the same hardships as the soldiers. This experience, though ultimately unsuccessful in its military aims, further cacated her resilience and adventurous spirit. The crusade also exacerbated the tensions in her marriage, and upon their return, after a period of intense negotiation, their marriage was annulled in 1152 on grounds of consanguinity. Within weeks of her annulment from Louis VII, Eleanor shocked Europe by marrying Henry Plantagenet, Duke of Normandy and Count of Anjou, a man much younger than her stern, and a rising power in Western Europe. This marriage was a monumental event. It not only brought Aquitaine into Henry's burgeoning domains, but also made him, through Eleanor, a more powerful ruler than the King of France himself. 2 years later, in 1154, Henry became King Henry II of England, and Eleanor became Queen of England. She reigned over an immense Anglo-Angevin empire that stretched from the Scottish border to the Pyrenees. Eleanor gave Henry 8 children, including 2 future kings of England, Richard the Lionheart and John. Despite her numerous pregnancies and the demanding role of queen, she maintained an active role in governing her vast territories, often acting as regent in Aquitaine. Her court in Poitiers became a renowned center of culture, patronizing troubadours and fostering the development of courtly love literature. However, her strong will and political acumen eventually clashed with Henry II's autocratic rule. Their relationship deteriorated, leading to open conflict when she supported her sons in a revolt against their father. As a result, Henry imprisoned Eleanor for 16 years from 1173 to 1189. Even during her long imprisonment, Eleanor's spirit remained unbroken. She endured this immense trial and emerged upon Henry II's death in 1189 to play an even more pivotal role in English and European politics. Her beloved son, Richard the Lionheart, ascended to the throne, and Eleanor, then in her late 60s, became his trusted advisor and regent during his frequent absences on crusade and in captivity. She demonstrated remarkable political skill, negotiating with rival powers, raising ransom money for Richard, and maintaining stability in England. Her diplomatic travels at this age were legendary, showing incredible stamina. She traveled extensively across Europe, a journey that would have exhausted much younger individuals, to bring Richard's fiancée, Berengaria of Navarre, to him, and to negotiate his release from captivity. After Richard's death in 1199, Eleanor, now in her late 70s, actively managed the succession, ensuring that her youngest son, John, inherited the English throne. She continued to advise John, embarking on diplomatic missions, such as traveling to Castile and Spain to arrange the marriage of her granddaughter, Blanche of Castile, to the future King Louis VIII of France. This last major journey took place when Eleanor was around 80 years old, a testament to her astonishing vitality and enduring influence. She outlived almost all of her children and many of her grandchildren. Eleanor of Aquitaine lived an astonishing 82 years, passing away in 1204. Her long life allowed her to shake the destiny of 2 kingdoms, witness the rise and fall of empires, and navigate the complex political and cultural currents of the 12th and early 13th centuries. She was a woman of immense power, intelligence, and resilience. A true legend who defied the limitations placed on women in her era and proved that a long and able life was possible even for those at the very pinnacle of medieval power and intrigue. Number 1. Charlemagne, c. 742, 814 AD. Age, etc. 72. The name Charlemagne conjures images of a legendary emperor, a towering figure who reshaped Western Europe and laid the foundations for much of its future history. Born around 742 AD, his early life unfolded within the powerful Carolingian dynasty of the Franks, a Germanic people who had established a formidable kingdom in what is now France and Germany. Charlemagne, or Charles the Great, was the son of Pepin the Short, who had become king of the Franks with papal backing. Charlemagne inherited a portion of the Frankish kingdom upon his father's death in 768, sharing it initially with his brother Carloman. However, Carloman's sudden death in 771 left Charlemagne as the sole ruler, setting him on a path of unprecedented expansion and consolidation. From the outset, Charlemagne was a man of immense energy and ambition. He was a natural leader, known for his imposing physical presence, his strategic brilliance, and his unyielding determination. His reign was characterized by almost constant warfare, aimed at expanding and securing his kingdom's borders. He waged campaigns against the Saxons, a pagan people to the north, for over 30 years, eventually converting them to Christianity and integrating their lands into his realm. He conquered the Lombard kingdom in Italy, ending their rule and becoming king of the Lombards himself. He fought against the Avars, a fierce nomadic people in Central Europe, destroying their power and seizing their vast treasures. His military might stretched across Europe from the Pyrenees in the west to the Danube in the east. Charlemagne's campaigns were not merely about conquest. They were also about establishing a new order. He believed in a unified Christian empire, a revival of the Western Roman Empire under Frankish leadership. His relationship with the papacy was crucial to this vision. He became the protector of the Pope, famously coming to Rome's aid against rebellious factions. On Christmas Day, in the year 800 AD, Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne Emperor of the Romans in St. Peter's Basilica, an event that profoundly shaped the course of European history. This act symbolized the fusion of Germanic power, Roman imperial tradition, and Christian authority, laying the groundwork for the Holy Roman Empire that would endure for centuries. Despite leading a life of continuous warfare and immense political pressure, Charlemagne lived to an exceptional age for a medieval ruler. He spent much of his life on horseback, personally leading his armies into battle, enduring the rigors of campaign life, and facing the constant threat of injury or disease. His robust constitution and apparent good health allowed him to maintain his active leadership for over 40 years. He was known for his love of hunting, riding, and swimming activities that contributed to his physical fitness. He also had a disciplined routine, reportedly enjoying regular meals and a structured lifestyle. He often consulted physicians and his courthouse scholars, who would have brought knowledge of ancient medical practices. Beyond his military prowess, Charlemagne was a passionate patron of learning and culture, initiating what historians call the Carolingian Renaissance. He recognized the decline in literacy and scholarship across his empire and set out to revive education. He invited leading scholars from across Europe, such as Alcuin of York, to his court at Aachen, where he established a palace school. He mandated the reform of monasteries and cathedrals to become centers of learning, encouraging the copying of ancient manuscripts and the standardization of texts. This effort was crucial in preserving classical knowledge and shaping the intellectual landscape of medieval Europe. He reformed the currency, improved infrastructure, and fostered economic growth. His vision for a unified and well-governed empire was comprehensive, extending to every facet of society. As he approached his late 60s and 70s, Charlemagne continued to be actively involved in the governance of his vast empire. He oversaw legal reforms, held annual assemblies, and maintained a tight grip on administration. He faced challenges, including Viking raids on his coasts, but his administrative structures were largely resilient. His remarkable longevity allowed him to consolidate his conquests, implement his reforms, and ensure a relatively stable succession although his only surviving legitimate son, Louis the Pious, inherited a challenge in maintaining the sprawling empire. His life was not without personal sorrow, as he outlived several of his children. However, his personal resilience allowed him to continue his duties until his death. Charlemagne passed away in 814 AD, at the age of approximately 72, a truly astounding lifespan for someone who spent so much of their life in leadership and war during the early medieval period. His death marked the end of an era. But his legacy as the father of Europe, the restorer of imperial authority in the West, and a champion of learning endured for 1,000 years and beyond. He unified a vast part of Western Europe under a single strong ruler, revived intellectual life, and provided a model for future empires, all sustained by an extraordinary personal vigor that allowed him to lead and shape his world for decades.